Beginning your descent. Cruising depth in roughly 40 seconds. Stand by.
A few weeks ago, the movie Iron Lung released, and it blew my expectations out of the water. I personally am a huge fan of the game. It's one of my favourite horror games of all time. Everything about the game, in my opinion, is perfect. For those not familiar, you're set in an alternate universe similar to our own where humanity is far more advanced. We've completely colonised space. However, an apocalypse of sorts has taken place, the Quiet Rapture. In this Quiet Rapture, every known habitable star and planet has vanished. The only survivors are the people that were either on space stations or starships. Humanity's supplies are weak. Your goal is to search for any natural resources on the remaining planets by using a camera that's attached to your submarine. Or you have your own thoughts and a rustic, claustrophobic submarine with the front camera attached to see what's in front of you. You're welded in. You've been placed on an ocean filled with blood. If successful, you earn your freedom. Iron Lung is a story about your task to save humanity. I remember playing it for the first time, and every time I took a picture, I'd be so desperate that whatever I'm about to see on this camera would completely change everything. The more difficult the path became to the next point, the higher my hopes got, because I thought, I can't just go through all this for nothing, right? And so, I'd keep taking pictures, and each and every single time, I'd be let down by some random rocks, sea pickles, or a skeleton that in the grand scheme of things, means nothing. I'd be in constant paranoia that at any moment I could just be killed. I'm at the mercy of whatever I'm down here with, but I've got to push through. I remember getting to the last few pictures of the game, hearing unknown entities swirling around me, checking my map to see some random point far off to the left in a little crevice that would look almost impossible to navigate through. And yet you have to do it because what if the thing that is in there is the thing we needed all along? So I turn left, and I don't stop, not until all the sensors on my submarine are going haywire. Even though that I knew that an extra nudge to the left or right could mean instant death, I still did it, because my life was nowhere near as important as what could be found. I come to a halt, and I turn left again, facing 180 degrees. I powered downwards to find my submarine warbling, being moved left to right, to left to right, to left to right. You almost feel nauseous, but I persevere. I get as close as I possibly could to whatever disruption is up ahead. You for the first time ever feel like you've uncovered some insane mystery. The thing that could have quite possibly ended humanity is just there, still, pulsating, disrupting anything that comes near. But what if it's nothing? What if it's just some anomaly on an already disturbing and strange planet? However, I can't let myself be dissuaded. I turn around 180 degrees, power out, and make my way to my next point before I start to cloud my judgment in doubt. I make my way to my next destination. I can't tell if my mind is playing tricks on me, or if I'm being watched. I try not to let my panic get the best of me. I have limited oxygen already. I've just got to get through it as quickly as possible. For some reason, my sensor is picking up something in front of me, even though I'm more clear on the map, and no matter how far forward I go, I don't hit a thing. I decided to take a picture to see if something was attached to the sensor that shouldn't be, or if my mind is starting to play tricks on me. I tread through the blood to the other side of the submarine, press the button, and it wasn't attacking me. It wasn't moving. It was just watching. And in that moment, everything clicked. This world isn't about me. I'm not the main character. I'm not the solution. I wasn't being hunted. I was being observed. And suddenly the light I'd found earlier didn't feel like a miracle. It felt like coincidence. I'm just someone that was sent down here because there was nobody else left. Still, I told myself, just one more and I can be free. And so I went. Up until this point, I fully thought that I'd find something that would mean something in the bigger picture, be pulled back up to the surface and report my findings. But this game was never about saving humanity. It was about false hope. It was about tricking yourself into believing that out of every other person that's delved into this ocean, that you'll be the one to live, that you'll be the one to mean something. You weren't given so much resources and pressure because you're special, you were given it because you're the last. The only thing you encounter are bones, rocks, and obscure objects that you can't even name. You go through all this fear, this anxiety, this constant paranoia for it all to be meaningless in the end. This is, in my opinion, one of the best endings to a game I've ever played. Iron Lung is everything an adventure horror game should be. The single thing that scares everyone the most in this world is their own imagination. Iron Lung plays on these fears perfectly. One of my favourite things about Iron Lung is that the ending is set in stone. No matter what your final discovery was going to be in the final picture that we never got to see, you were always going to die. You were always meant to die. Your sacrifice meant nothing to the world. I think the point of the ending is to show that there's really no hope left for humanity at the end. I find it so refreshing to play a game every now and then that isn't afraid to kill off a character or to leave the ending sad. This for me shows the story had so much thought and passion put into it that they could see exactly how a character arc was supposed to go, and they committed. This sense of hopelessness and the cost of sacrifice isn't unique to Iron Lung. It's something that we've seen in stories before like Resident Evil 7 and 8, Breaking Bad, and even in anime like Attack on Titan. A great example of this would be Resident Evil 7 and 8. Throughout these two games, you follow your protagonist, Ethan Winters, who goes through hell in order to save his family. And at the end of the second game, he dies. You find out that he was killed in the start of the first game and reconstructed with mold. The game then ends with Ethan sacrificing himself by nuking the whole village with him still in it, so that his wife and kid could be taken to safety. I feel that he is the greatest Resident Evil character. I think that Resident Evil 7 and 8 was Capcom trying to show you that they can make a really serious and well written story in a horror survival game that you can immerse yourself in, and they did this so well. In fact, throughout both games, you never once see what Ethan actually looks like. It's the first Resident Evil game in first person, and it works so effectively because you can so easily imagine yourself in place of Ethan. You're supposed to be Ethan and develop that connection with him. And I feel this was intentionally done with the ending of the story in mind. His story is a tragedy, and yet it's the best. You shouldn't be afraid to kill off characters because they're so beloved and you're afraid of the backlash from the audience. Doing this only shows that you're not fully confident and proud of your story. And if the creator isn't confident enough in their story to commit to it, then why should I waste my time watching it? One of my favourite TV shows of all time lives by this. One of the things that makes Breaking Bad so special to me is how it constantly keeps you on edge by killing off characters. At any given moment, someone you've gotten attached to could be taken out, and there's never any certainty that the good guys will come out on top. To this day, no moment in television has made me as anxious as when Walter attached that bomb to Gus's car in the parking lot. Gus just knowing that something was off, and in that moment, I honestly thought that Gus was going to figure it out and Walter would be exposed. The tension was unbearable. I was literally watching through my fingers cold up in a ball because I feared for Walt's life. I genuinely thought that Walt might not make it out of that situation. And this isn't the type of anxiety you can give an audience after harming a few characters. You get this level of anxiety by killing fan favourites. I really liked Gale, and yet he got his shit blown clean off by Jesse. I really liked Jane, and yet she still choked to death on her own vomit. There has been years of build up to these moments of Walt's and Jesse's closer encounters with death. Walt gives up Jesse to neo-Nazis later on in the show, and as Jesse is there with a gun to his head, I really thought that was it. Vince Gilligan isn't the type of guy to go for a happy-go-lucky ending, because that's not how a story like this should be concluded. Eventually, Walt goes in and saves Jesse, but he does so at the cost of his own life. And that's what makes the ending so perfect. It's not a happy ending, but it's Walt's ending. He's lying there bleeding out in the middle of a meth lab, satisfied with everything he's done. Jesse drives away, unrecognisable, leaving Walt behind. It's tragic, but it's a perfect conclusion to his character arc. Sure, I get why people don't like it when a beloved character is killed off. We've all gotten invested in these characters. I spent 5 years watching Breaking Bad, so by the time I finished, I felt like I knew these characters inside and out. You can almost feel what they were feeling just from their eyes or body language. It was so well done. You became attached. And that's exactly why I understood that Walt's story needed to end the way it did. I knew what kind of person Walter White had become. By the time the finale had rolled around, there was no doubt in my mind he didn't deserve to live. The world around him was filled with killers, corrupt lawyers, neo-Nazis and cartel lords, but somehow Walt was the worst of them all. In the end, the man who built an empire out of meth, manipulation and violence had to pay the ultimate price. If Walter White had lived after the finale, I wouldn't have been satisfied. His death was the only fitting conclusion for the character. It was the culmination of everything he'd done. A man who lost his humanity along the way and ended up with nothing but destruction behind him. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that every show needs to kill off their main character to be good. Take Better Call Saul for example. This series ends with Saul being sentenced to prison for the rest of his life, and I'm totally satisfied with that ending. It's perfect for his character. Soul's journey is complete and Kim gets to walk away free, which is the best possible outcome for her. The point I'm getting at is that these intense shows need high stakes to work. Breaking Bad had these high stakes because of its willingness to kill off characters you cared about. The same cannot be said for every show though. Which brings me to something I've got to bring up about Demon Slayer. The stakes in that show aren't nearly as high as they should be, and for me that's a huge issue. Now, don't get me wrong, Demon Slayer is amazing. The animation is top tier, the characters are great, and the fights are unbelievable. It's one of my favourite anime without a doubt, but there's a problem with it, and it really hit me after watching the Entertainment District arc. While the show had me hooked with all the tension, the fear, the sense that any of these characters could die at any moment, it all fell apart, and it wasn't just a little thing. In the Entertainment District arc, you're on the edge of your seat, most especially during the fight with Gyutaro and Daki. You see Inosuke get impaled by Gyutaro and you're thinking, this is it. This is the turning point. It would have been an incredible loss. The tension is real because we're starting to see that these characters, especially the ones we've been with from season 1, might not make it. Then Zenitsu almost sacrifices himself for Tanjiro and you're feeling that gut-wrenching anxiety. This really hooked me, because it made me believe anyone can die. This is the part where the show makes you feel like the stakes are as high as they can be. But then, out of nowhere, the show pulls back and you realise something. Plot armor is in full effect. Inosuke somehow survives a literal impalement to the chest. He should be dead. I thought that was going to be a massive turning point, a real gut punch for the crew, but no, he's fine. Same with Zenitsu. After what seemed like a huge sacrifice, he's back and no worse for wear. And Tengen? He's literally on the brink of death, then somehow revives himself by controlling the muscles around his heart. Like, what? Like, sure, it's cool that Tengen's a beast, but that moment it felt like no one in the main crew is ever going to die. If they're not dying here, when will they? This is where the stakes start to disappear. Demon Slayer was setting up a world where anything could happen, but when you start to realise that the characters can't die, that nothing real will happen to them, it kills the tension. Look at Attack on Titan, where no one is safe. When a character dies there, it actually matters. It shaped the story, and that's what made it so great. You didn't know who would make it out alive, there were no guarantees. Every death meant something. But here, Demon Slayer had the chance to really hit us with a loss, to make it feel like the characters had real importance, but it pulls back every time. The show is trying to have it both ways, building up these tense, emotional moments, but then making sure no one dies, and that takes away from the impact of everything that came before. By the time we hit the Swordsmith Village arc, I realised something. The tension was gone. The show had set up the perfect environment for loss, but the main trio was never in any real danger. And the longer this went on, the less invested I felt about the outcome. Sure, the animation's amazing, and I still love the characters, but there's no fear anymore, there's no anxiety. We know they're not gonna die. When Zenitsu goes into battle after the reveal about his mentor's death, I didn't feel the weight of his fight because the show had already shown us that no one was at risk. We're not in the same space we were when Rengoku died, or even when characters like the kids Tanjiro trained with in season 1 were taken out. Now it feels like everyone's untouchable. The thing about death in stories is that it has weight. It gives meaning to everything that happened before it. I mean, has the mangaka never read Erwin's speech? If a character dies, it's not just about them, it's about the story itself. It changes things. The narrative takes a new direction, and when Demon Slayer shies away from those consequences, it loses some of the emotional connection that it had earlier. Look at Iron Lung or Breaking Bad or Attack on Titan again. They commit. There's no safety net for their characters. If they die, it's permanent. And when it happens, it matters. That's what makes the emotional moments hit so much harder. But in Demon Slayer, every time the tension peaks and it feels like someone's going to make the ultimate sacrifice, they don't. You're left with the feeling that no one is ever really going to lose, and that makes the show's biggest moments fall flat. Demon Slayer is still a fantastic show, don't get me wrong, but it had a chance to go all out and really hit us with some emotional punches. Instead it pulled back. And now it's hard to feel that same urgency and fear I did in the earlier arcs. The characters, especially Tanjiro, Zenitsu and Inosuke, are great, but I can't help but feel that the stakes have been deflated by the plot armor surrounding them. The show could have been something even more powerful if it didn't shy away from loss, from real consequences. If it had committed to character deaths, those who survived would have felt like they really earned it. but as it stands, I'm just not worried about any of them anymore, and that's a huge missed opportunity. The thing about great stories is that they don't just make you feel the weight of the world they've built, they make you feel the weight of the choices, the sacrifices. It's what made Iron Lung so haunting, it's what made Breaking Bad so brutal, and it's what made Attack on Titan such an emotional rollercoaster. These stories don't pull punches, they commit to the tragedy, to the heartbreak, to the hard choices, and that's what makes them stick with me. In Demon Slayer, the tension was real. I was on the edge of my seat. I felt like I was right in there with Tanjiro, Zenitsu and Inosuke, fighting to survive. But as the story went on, it became clear. The stakes were never as high as we were made to believe. Every time I thought that one of them was done for, the show pulled back, and that's the problem. That's when the tension starts to fade, because when no one dies, it feels like no one matters. The stakes lose their weight. That's not to say Demon Slayer isn't a great show. It is, but it could have been something even more incredible if it had the courage to do what Iron Lung, Breaking Bad and Attack on Titan did. To let go of the safety net, to make the loss real, to make those sacrifices count. When a story does that, when it commits, the payoff hits harder and it feels like it actually matters. The best part of storytelling is that there's always room to evolve, to take risks. Maybe Demon Slayer will get there, maybe it won't. But the point is, the stories that really stick with us are the ones that aren't afraid to go there, to let things get messy, to embrace the darker side of things. Because when you do that, when you let those painful moments land, the whole story comes alive. We remember the losses, we feel them, they change the story, and honestly, they change us. And it's those moments that really define the story. So here's to the creators who aren't afraid to take the hard road, who understand that sometimes a tragic ending is the only way for a character to truly finish their arc. Because when that happens, when a story sticks with its decisions, we feel it. We don't just watch it, we live it. And that's how we know it's a story we won't forget. So please, commit to the fall, commit to the loss. Because if no one can die, then nothing's truly alive.